Chapter 2, The Old Shysters, Big Show, Haley, Idaho, 1894. When young Robert finally woke up, he was wakened by the popping of firecrackers and the distant sharpness of a brass band bleating out Camptown races. The whistle of the Oregon Short Line on its way through to Ketchum echoed through the streets, and the wooden wheels of Dr. Durham's wagon clacking over the hard-packed streets mirrored the rhythm of high-stepping horses. He'd forgotten. Today was the 3rd of July. Idaho observed 2 big days of festivities in the summer. One was the 3rd of July, the other was the 4th. 4 years earlier, July 3rd, 1890, Idaho had been officially admitted to the Union by proclamation of President Harrison. Red, white, and blue buntings bannered Main Street, and flags fluttered from every building and street corner. Carriages were moving briskly about, but in a way suggesting they had no particular destination. One, driven by an attractive woman in lace and bows, was parked right in the middle of Main Street, right in the middle of the street. And while she talked to a man with his hat in his hand, the man jumped as some children tossed a string of firecrackers at his feet. 2 steam engines were clacking and puffing and flapping their way side by side through the city, their prideful operators unaware that at that very moment, somewhere far away, an unknown by the name of Henry Ford was fast at work on the development of a better machine. The mining boom and the allure of gold were changing everything. Each day, more and more people were crowding into the Wood River Valley, coming to the towns of the Idaho Gold Belt: Bellevue, Haley, Broadford, Bullion, Ketchum, Muldoon. Some came to work the mines. Some came to farm and raise livestock. Others opened businesses. Fortunes were made in the blink of an eye. A man might be sweeping a saloon one day and depositing $20,000 in the bank the next. 14 years earlier, there had been nothing in the valley but a trapper's trail. Now, in 1894, Haley alone boasted 4 churches, 9 saloons, 3 hotels, and 7 attorneys. Dottie played at all 4 of those churches. They staggered their services so that she could get from one to the next. Her little feet couldn't even touch the floor. All eyes were on Dr. Joseph I. Durham and his wagon and entourage as he moved down through Main Street. People were stopping conversations and coming out of businesses and homes to see the strange sight. Children began following after him. As soon as he had gathered the attention of most everyone in town, he stopped at the intersection of Main and Carbonate, right in the middle of town. The Friedman stores were on the left, the McCormick Bank on the right. He gathered so many people, men in bowlers and top hats, women in dresses and lace, that the driver of the Ish and Haley stage had to fire a shot into the air just to clear a path. Then, with the wagon as a backdrop and the dirt of the street as a performance platform, Dr. Durham entertained the townsfolk, just like he had done in Muldoon, just like he had done in Bullion. Part snake oil salesman, part surgeon, the good doctor made his living traveling the towns of the Northwest with his dancing Indians and Negroes, putting on his sideshows, performing surgeries, setting broken bones, peddling electric belts, whatever he could do to serve the public and make a buck or two in the process. And of course, he would sell his miracle elixir, a tonic good for all ills of body and soul. A potion that once gave fluid voice to the great orator William E. Borah before a chronic stutterer. There's a story about Senator Borah that in his latter days as a senator, somebody put a new device, somebody put a microphone in front of him, and he waved it away. "Don't need it," he said. And he didn't. The noon sun was blasting down. Its heat shimmered off the brick side of the brick side of the McCormick Bank building and gleamed against the green-trimmed white sides of the S.L. Friedman store and gave a kind of a mystic validation to the odd little man. Dust kicked up at his heels as he strode back and forth. Grasshoppers clicked as they flew to get out of his way. "A time back, I had no hair at all. None. 2 tablespoons a day. That's all it took to give me this." A dog was yapping, frightened by the drums and the dancing and all of the hoopla. Dr. Durham removed the cork from one of the bottles and shook some of the liquid onto the animal. It stopped its yapping forthwith. He replaced the cork and continued with no reference whatsoever to the amazing occurrence. "Take a good look at Chief Mowakimbo," he pointed to the African. "The chief is a giant of a man, an incredible physical specimen. And do you know how he got that way?" He held up the bottle. "Of course, we can't be sure, but the fact is..." The tribesmen across the river, the ones who don't have the elixir, are all pygmies, none over 4 feet tall. And have a look at his queen, the woman, her ink-black skin entirely exposed except for her breasts and loins, danced and twirled in a circle around Dr. Durham, her bare legs slipping in and out of the long grass skirt to the rhythm of the old Indian's drum beat. Some of the women in the crowd gasped. A specimen of health and beauty. And do you know how she got that way? He held up the bottle again. Of course, we can't be sure, but I am told she is over 150 years old. Fact is, she comes from the land wherefrom the potion originates. He held up the bottle again, held it further out. I have been partaking of this 2 tablespoons a day for nigh on 3 years now. And in that 3-year period, I've not had a single cold. A colleague of mine back east used to wear eyeglasses until he began taking this twice a day. Now he has perfect vision. Twice a year, I journey back to Africa and return with a small quantity. The contents of this bottle could well sell for $20. Even then it would be a bargain. What I will do is give it to you for the cost of the bottle itself, $1.50, a pittance, considering the glass is specially treated to keep the essence from seeping through into the air. Why am I willing to do this? Because, my dear people of the Wood River Gold Belt, I am a fool. I am willing to lose money if it will benefit you. All I ask in return is that you allow me to be your doctor. That is how we will square things. A man from the crowd put up his hand. Here, right here. I'll buy 2, right here. Dr. Durham held his palm up. Patience, my good man. Time enough for that. Another man waved his fist, clutching in at a silver dollar and 2 quarters. Here, I'll take 1. Over here, right here. Patience, you will all get your chance. We'll get to you all. That I promise. First, allow me to draw your attention to the device the Queen is holding before her. Yet another miracle of modern medicine, the amazing electric belt. The properties of electricity are far-reaching. The Queen was prancing back and forth, holding the belt above her head. It looked like an ordinary leather belt, except that it was thicker and wider in back. The properties of electricity are only now beginning to be understood, he went on. We are in the infancy of discovery. It is a marvelous age we live in, one in which the curtains of the unknown are being lifted, finally, slowly. Oh, so slowly. Electricity has the power to destroy. Dr. Durham waved his hand and brought forth an explosion of smoke. The people jumped back. But it also has the power to heal. This device is charged with electricity. It will not be painful. In fact, you won't feel it at all. But the electricity and its healing properties will be moving through your body, balancing your energies. The Chinese have known for centuries that the health and well-being of a human body is dependent upon the proper balance of its energies. Wear this belt for 24 hours, and I guarantee you, you will feel 100% better for the low price of only $2.50. Then came more dancing. Then the Queen circulated among the crowd and sold some tonic and belts, and the old Indian did some knife throwing and trick shooting. At the end of the show, to the people who had any money left, the charitable doctor offered to sell a small book he'd written advertising his remedies. And last of all, but certainly not least, the old Indian, a shaman wise in the mystic ways of things, told fortunes for 2 bits, or for whatever else he could extract from a willing and gullible participant. The show lasted most of the afternoon and stole away the people from the other events of the picnic, the tree climb, the fishing contest, the pie judging, the horse show. Whatever medicinal value the tonic and the electric belts may or may not have had, the folks got their money's worth, at least in entertainment. It was better than the circus that had come to the valley the previous fall. The town purely sparkled with camaraderie. For an afternoon, the people forgot their cares and their struggles. Dr. Durham stayed for a time, a few weeks, until he was arrested for boring a hole in George Shirley's head. Practicing surgery without a medical diploma filed for record was the charge, brought by another of the town's local doctors. Dr. Durham was tried in Bellevue, where it was proven that he did in fact have a medical diploma. It just wasn't filed in that county, and it was on record. He was acquitted on the condition that he file his diploma in Alturas County, the county of residency, as required by law. But as quickly and mysteriously as he arrived, Dr. Durham vanished. Only for a time, though. In less than a year, he was back, this time without the wagon and the sideshow, this time setting up an office in the daily and weekly Wood River Times building with phenomenal success. And a funny thing had happened during his absence. George Shirley made a complete recovery. It gave people a celestial confidence in the town's new doctor. George's condition before Dr. Durham's strange procedure had been pronounced as incurable. He had been the victim of torturous headaches, memory loss, speech difficulty, even spasms of unpredictable violence. One of the local churches had proclaimed him possessed. Dr. Durham's simple diagnosis was mastoiditis, and he bored that hole in George's cranium and drained out what must have been 2 cupfuls of pus. George was cured. To the people of the Wood River Valley, Dr. Durham's return was no less than a divine event. They came to him in droves with their ailments, robbing the doctor who filed the original complaint of nearly all his business. Then, on July 4th, 1895, a beautiful woman arrived in town aboard the John Haley stage from somewhere down in California and married the eccentric Dr. Durham. In celebration, he passed out bottles of his tonic, the amazing Kickapoo Sagawa Remedy Elixir. He gave 20 bottles to the driver of a triple freighter plodding through town with his 20-mule team headed for the steep switchbacks of Galena Summit. Barely a month after the wedding, another beauty showed up, this one from Cincinnati, and beset by an apparent jealous rage, aimed a bullet at Dr. Durham's head. It whizzed past and crashed into the diploma, shattering the glass and putting a hole in the middle of the O, right in the middle of the O in the name Joseph. The hole was so perfectly placed, no one would have been able to tell it was there had it not been for the broken glass. The next morning, the town of Haley had one less citizen, one less doctor. Dr. Durham was gone again, this time forever, with his wife and belongings and diploma. Where he went was a mystery. No one ever saw him again. And the tonic, the amazing Kickapoo Sagawa Remedy Elixir, did it work? Yes and no. It had no medicinal value other than what might be carried in water, molasses, and corn liquor. But the future Dr. Robert Henry Wright learned something from Dr. Durham, healer, shyster, fortune teller. As the good doctor himself once put it, every now and then you got to fool him into getting well. The mind's a funny thing that way. Sometimes in his career, when medical science was not enough, when he had tried every possible thing, Dr. Wright would give the old shyster's method a try, fool him into getting well. Every now and then, it would work. The mind's a funny thing that way. But it didn't work on Robert's first patient. His first patient was doomed from the start. His first patient was the victim of a disease of a different kind, different than that wrought by microorganisms, different than that brought by trauma to muscle and bone. It began with a knock on the door. Barely out of medical school, newly married to Dot, his childhood sweetheart, and living in Walker, Missouri, he had gone into business with his brother-in-law, Dr. Stanley Love. It was a weak knock, barely to be heard, a humble tapping, almost like the scratching of an animal. Dot put her hand on the octagonal glass knob and hesitated, then turned it, swung the door open. Standing there, looking up, face distorted in fear, was a child, a little girl no one would help, not even compassionate people, for her skin was the wrong color, and she was in the wrong part of town. The child tried not to cry, but tears came nonetheless, streaming down her pearly black cheeks. She tried to talk, but it came out in hard-to-understand gasps. "My mama is dying," she finally choked out, pleading with her eyes. "Will you help me find the doctor? Please, will you help? My mama is dying. She's having a baby, and she's dying. Please, please. Whoa. Slow down there," said Bob, appearing in the doorway with his coat half on. "Dr. Love won't be in for another hour, but I'm a doctor. Let's you and I go see about that mom of yours. What do you say?" The door shut hard, and Dot heard the running of footsteps down the stairs, the little black girl's footsteps followed by Bob's. She watched out the window as the child ran down the street, Bob following in wide strides, coattails flying, medical bag held out to one side, half breaking into a run to keep up. Cynthia Dot Beamer Wright said a prayer for her new husband, the man who had been her best friend pretty much her whole life, a prayer that things would go well. She then busied herself about the apartment with the tasks of the morning, emptying the wash water, drawing and carrying new water, heating it up, cleaning the tub and wash basins, emptying and cleaning the porcelain bucket by the bed, gathering and folding clothes from the line out back. Once her tasks were complete, she began composing an answer to the letter from her mother that had just arrived.